All right, we're a month and a day away from the start of training camp. We're 11 weeks away today from the start of the regular season. Before camp begins during this quote downtime, I'm currently in Flagstaff, Arizona. I want to talk about the top 5 guys who benefited most in the offseason heading to camp. Now, this is based on 2 things, which can be a combination of the 2. It's based on actions of the organization and observations based on the brief stuff that we saw during mini camps and OTAs. And some would say, well, you can't see a lot during OTAs. That's very true. They could completely flip the script once camp starts. But this is just based on the information that we have. And obviously, Nick Casario's favorite word, it's fluid. It is a fluid process. But for the sake of this exercise, I want to talk about the top 5 guys who benefited most in the offseason heading into camp. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. You can see me, hear me here throughout the season, 365 days a year, 4 years strong almost, and also on SNL Live at 4 o'clock with Cody Stutes. The first guy, the #1 guy, is Jake Andrews. And I got to be honest, whenever I heard that the Texans signed Jake Andrews, I had to do what a lot of people had to do. I'm not going to sit here and even front. I had to use Google and figure out who the hell this guy is and what the hell this guy is about. He is definitely a wiki lead. And those of you that don't know what a wiki lead is, welcome to the Locker Room. I'll define it for you. A wiki lead is an athlete you have to look up on the internet, and typically it drives you to their Wikipedia page. Jake Andrews is interesting because new Texans offensive line coach Cole Popovich has the connection with him. He was offensive line coach at Troy in Andrews' final year there. And then New England, they released him after the meniscus injury, and he was on the street. Now, you wondered, what are the Texans bringing this guy in for? Is he going to be a reserve guy? Is he going to be kind of trying to make the team behind Juice Scruggs and Jared Patterson? And then I'll be damned. The most shocking thing that happened in mini camps and OTAs was as the first team offensive line went out there, which was one of the most intriguing events to see kind of how they were going to handle this revamped offensive line. Jake Andrews is out there as the starting center, and that lasted over the entire course of offseason activities. And it's obvious that he has the relationship with the new O-line coach. The guys that he's competing with have struggled in a number of ways. Both of them have struggled to stay on the field, so it's not like the injury sets him back too much. And performance-wise, they've struggled as well. So Jake Andrews, he went from a wiki lead to someone that's #1 on the depth chart. So we got to keep a really, really close eye on that and see how that goes. But he's definitely the #1 guy based on actions and observations that benefited from the offseason. #2, this one's interesting. So you sign Christian Kirk, you trade, and then you trade for Christian Kirk, I should say. You draft 2 rookie wide receivers. You bring in another one in Justin Watson. And a guy who was on the back end of the depth chart last year, I would say is a guy who benefited from the offseason based on observation and actions despite all that. And #2 is Xavier Hutchinson. Xavier Hutchinson right now it feels like he is light years ahead of John Mechie when it comes to sticking out in workouts. He also has 2 years left on his rookie deal. Nick Casario praised Xavier Hutchinson after he made the moves he did. He plays special teams, and he just quite frankly looks a lot better than he did last season. Whatever you think of Xavier Hutchinson, and I don't think that he's like emerged to the top of the depth chart, but he has gotten better. And it does feel like, in a crazy way, despite the fact that the wide receiver room is an embarrassment of intrigue, not necessarily riches, his spot on this roster heading into camp appears safer now than it was last year. It's really, really interesting. But Xavier Hutchinson would be the #2 guy. #3, and you got to hear me out on this. #3 is Christian Harris. Christian Harris missed a large chunk of last year. DeMeco Ryans stubbornly wouldn't really admit how serious the injury was. When he came back, it didn't seem like he was really ready to contribute. But Christian Harris this year, DeMeco Ryans has come out and said he's going to be ready to go at camp. It is a contract year. And quite frankly, they're not depending on Christian Harris. The question about Christian Harris has never been, is he capable? We saw some really good flashes in year one for DeMeco in 2023, including the pick six against the Browns in the wild card round. Christian Harris he's coming into a defense where Henry To'oTo'o has kind of established himself as a guy that they trust that can be a rotational guy. So it can be kind of, to take a baseball term, a little bit of a platoon. But Christian Harris, the upside is there. The talent is still there. And DeMeco Ryans is now sticking his chest out and saying this guy's going to be ready to go at camp. When you look at upside at the linebacker position, Christian Harris still has perhaps the most upside. And here's the other thing. They didn't really do anything to replace what Christian Harris is. They didn't make any significant investments at the linebacker position. So Christian Harris is coming into a situation, assuming that he can stay on the field. Might be a large assumption, but he's going to be behind the best edge duo in the league, arguably, and Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. He's going to have a lot of talent behind him, and he might just be in position to just go out there and make plays. You're not dependent on him, and it's in his best interest to do well because he's on the final year of that contract. So Christian Harris is number 3, and he didn't even step on the field in offseason activities. Number 4, this one's interesting. Kind of a similar situation to what happened with Xavier Hutchinson, but Daria Goomba. They cannot quit Daria Goomba. And God bless Daria Goomba for maximizing every ability that God gave him. The fact that Daria Goomba has made the career he has is beyond impressive. There were a number of guys drafted when he was that had a lot more accolades, a lot more talent, but he's carved out a nice career for himself. Would you ideally like to have a running back, RB3, that has a little bit more juice, or RB4? Sure. But what is that old coaching cliche that you always hear? What's the best ability? Availability. He's available. Dameon Pierce hasn't been available. There's been times where they haven't trusted him. Once again, he was not on the field in OTAs. Daria Goomba was RB1 this offseason. He's also a big part of what they do on special teams. So would it have shocked me if Daria Goomba had been a former Texan at this point? No, but it feels like Daria Goomba has done quite well for himself, and sometimes being there is just kind of enough. Number 5, and this one is someone that DeMeco Ryans has brought up a number of times, Justin Watson. DeMeco Ryans called Justin Watson one of the most consistent players in the league. That's not a misquote. He also praised him for his hard work. Now, he hasn't made as many plays in OTAs and in team drills as Xavier Hutchinson, but there have been flashes, and he appears to be very comfortable playing special teams and being a part of Frank Ross's third phase. So Justin Watson, the wide receiver position, crazy enough, it feels like, and this is always dangerous, it feels like you can assume who the top 6 are. And Justin Watson appears to be one of those guys. What does that mean for John Mechie? Your guess is as good as mine. Might be time for John Mechie to maybe just have a change of scenery. Sometimes that helps. They did that with Kenyon Green. Maybe you can get something for him. But 2 wide receivers on the list, and Xavier Hutchinson and Justin Watson, neither of which are the ones that you invested the most in, with Kirk and the 2 rookies. Christian Harris, I'm buying that penny stock. I've said this a number of times. Jake Andrews didn't know who the hell he was till he got here, but now we got to know. You damn sure better know if you're going to be at training camp when it starts a month and a day from now. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate you for coming through the Locker.